Welcome to Physiological Shop Talk. In this podcast, we bring you roughly 20 to 25 minutes of practical clinical methods, perspectives, and advice that has its work boots on. Listen in for clinical gems that you can begin to investigate the next time that you walk into clinic. Additionally, visit the show notes page for supporting materials from this week's guest on Shop Talk. All right, friends, roll up your sleeves. Let's get to work. This episode of Shop Talk is brought to you by LASA OMS, your clinic's partner in wellness. LASA has a special offer for you. Listen for it later in the show. The information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Always consult a qualified licensed healthcare professional before making any decisions about your health or treatment. The host and guests are not responsible for any actions taken based on the content of this podcast. Hello, everybody. Today I have Christina Jackson joining us on our little series here on reproductive health. Christina has been at this game for 31 years. She's been doing OBGYN work. She works alongside midwives. She's worked in fertility clinic settings. She's been in private practice a long, long time. She's taught, she's supervised students. She's been around the block. And I'm really excited to have her join us today. We're talking about menopause and the big three of menopause: sleep, heat, and weight gain. Christina, welcome to Physiological.
Well, thanks, Michael. I'm really glad to be here with you.
We've known each other a long time. You were actually in this game a few years before I came along, so you were one of those folks that we used to look up to and talk about, oh, Christina, yeah, we want to be like her someday.
That's very flattering. I think we've known each other almost since the beginning of our careers. So
I know, it's been a long time. I'd like to begin today talking about these aspects of menopause. We've had a little conversation before rolling some tape, and we're talking about how education is a really key thing.
I actually think it is the key thing. And you have many people walk through the door, and a lot of them you can help. Some of them you can't, often due to just lifestyle factors that are overcoming what we can do. But, you know, if you really go deeply into our medicine and explain to them about the decline of the kidneys and how things change in their bodies and work with them to try to accept those changes, that will go a long way, and they'll take that with them and they'll remember it, and they'll remember you for it. So I think it's critical. And I also think it's critical as a place of discerning all the fads that are out there around menopause, or really anything in medicine, actually.
Oh, it's such a huge business right now.
Oh, hugely. And especially because of hormones. Now we're saying that we can use hormones again. Things are going to change for us in our profession, but people will still have problems.
Say more about that. How come they're still going to have problems? Hormones are the big promise these days.
Well, the way that I think about it is that, you know, there's a part of menopause. I mean, everyone goes through menopause. Every woman's going to go through menopause. And some of how we go through that is genetic. Another piece of it is really how we've been taking care of our bodies for the last 10, 15 years. Have we lived sort of in a place of equanimity, or have we been really just pushing? And so many of us, just the way we are, especially in the States, pushing is kind of what women have to do.
It's the modus operandi. It's true for all of us.
Yes, it's true for all of us. We're overdoing it. And I think a lot of times we're overdoing it more than our bodies can do for too long. And so I think that there's that, and there's also how well can we adapt to the change? Can we modify our lifestyle? I mean, as Chinese medicine practitioners, we have the choice sometimes. Can I work a little bit less? Can I shorten my hours? Can I do something different? And some people have that choice, or they don't have that choice, or they don't think they have that choice. And of course, some of that's is a place of privilege to have those choices, but they do affect our health. And I think explaining that to people, and that in relation to the decline of the kidneys and how we move through this and how we go forward in our lives is huge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think our culture wants people to just take a pill and move on and keep going. And I think we can help people get to a different place with that.
I think you're right. Our culture really wants people just to keep moving. Like, keep moving. What's wrong with you if you don't? And there's also this idea that if we're really on our game, if we work out hard, if we eat the right things, if we cold plunge, if we drink shakes, blah, 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 eat the right protein, whatever,
Yep.
that we're going to get a bypass. This is true for men and women, I think for all of us.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right? If you do the quote, right taking care of yourself, you'll be able to do at 47 what you did at 37.
Right. In 57, it gets worse.
Yes.
Yep, that's exactly true. So I think that educational piece is huge. And sometimes people can't make that change now, but they'll think about it and they'll remember it. And maybe when they're making some choices in their lives, they'll think back to it. And I've had people come in a few years later and say, I remembered what you said about this, and it's really impacted me, and I've done this or that because of that. And I think it's really, don't be afraid to really get into it with them and do the tongue and the pulse and the abdomen and show them what you're seeing. And sometimes that body feedback, they'll be able to believe you a little bit more, and you say, it's not me, it's the medicine.
Yeah, it's interesting sometimes, right? Sometimes I'll palpate someone's abdomen and it's icy cold.
Yes. Yep.
It's just icy cold. And they have no idea that their belly is icy cold. And so I'll take their hand and I'll put it.
But you point it out to them.
I'll just put their hand on it. I'll go, feel that?
Yep.
And they're often really quite shocked.
Yeah. And then you talk to them about their yang. And yeah, it's impactful. Yeah. And it's not you making it up. It's us bringing the medicine and just bringing the philosophy. And then I just say, then your body will, I'm just giving you the ideas from what the medicine has taught us. And then you go home and think about this in your life and try it out and see what you think. Your body will let you know.
Mm-hmm. Now, the body will let you know. I often have a challenge with the quote education side of working with my patients, just because, and I think it's just a personal thing for me. I don't like to preach. I'm kind of anaphylactically allergic to any kind of evangelism.
Yes.
And in my practice at times, I have been kind of an evangelist, and I found that it turned people off. Have you got any suggestions for finding the openings where people might be receptive to hearing just a little bit about how they might do something different that will get those kind of changes that you're talking about?
Sometimes I will say to them, I'll give them just one thing, but I'll often say, the medicine says this. The medicine says that eating a lot of cold food it really depletes the yang in our digestion. But I'm not making this up. This is what they say, but just try it and see what you think. And then after I tell them to do a few things, I'll usually say, and I'll try to give them the big hanging fruit, like take away the ice water, for instance, not like eat all these spleen foods and you can never eat this or that. And I try to explain to them about it's what you do 80% of the time that's the most important. What you do the other 20%, go live your life and have a good time. And then at the end, I'll usually ask them, does this seem like too many things? Does this seem doable to you? Or does this seem, if this is too much, let's scale this back.
Oh, good. So you get some buy-in early on. Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes that works. And sometimes if it's something really hard, I just won't even tell them for a couple of visits. I'll try to get some kind of traction with some acupuncture and get them feeling better. And then maybe they'll trust me a couple visits in.
I think that's a really key point. There is a thing about building trust. If you come at them with too much too soon, it's overwhelm. And you're a weirdo with acupuncture anyway, so I'm not even sure why I'm here in the first place. I don't know if I should trust you yet. And so you build that trust up, and then you can get some traction. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, okay, so a big thing that I know my folks are often complaining about, so many people complain about, not just menopausal women, really anyone over the age of 50, it seems these days, is sleep.
Yes. Yeah.
What are your thoughts about this?
So when I think about the main issues of menopause we talked about, the sleep, heat, and weight loss, I think of sleep as the place to start. It can feel like a merry-go-round or a chicken and the egg, like they come in with all of it and like, where do you start? And to me, the sleep is the place to start. And the reason for this is because I think we're all familiar with the idea of cortisol these days. Of course, now I'm going into Western medicine myself. But if the sleep...
Yes, but it's a buzzword. People will get your attention. It'll get people's attention.
Exactly. You can explain it to them in terms of cortisol, and they know what that is. But if they're not sleeping, everything else is worse. If you don't sleep, the heat gets worse. If you don't sleep, you crave carbohydrates and you eat the wrong thing. If you don't sleep, then it's really hard to exercise. Or if you do exercise, you're overdoing it because you're too depleted. And so for me, that's where I start. And I also tell them, don't even attempt to lose weight until you're sleeping. It's because it won't work. Our bodies want to store. And so basically, I will use my Chinese medicine discernment to really try to figure out why they're not sleeping. And a lot of times in perimenopause, this is when women will first show up because all of a sudden things are crazy. A lot of times at that point, we're taught in school that it's kidney, 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 and often it's not kidney at that point. And so don't get caught up in that. Really think about just look at your pattern and forget the kidney. I mean, it might, if someone's been kidney yin deficient their whole lives, yeah, it probably is kidney yin deficiency. Or if they've been anxious and heart yin deficient for the last 20 years, yeah, it probably is heart yin deficiency, but just don't get caught up in that. And so I treat that first.
Mm-hmm. You go back to your basic patterns. You just practice Chinese medicine.
Basic patterns. Yep. Chinese medicine. Yep.
And yeah, sometimes the textbook stuff is spot on.
Yep.
I often find myself double checking myself whenever I come up with a textbook diagnosis.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Because I don't know if I'm being lazy or if it's actually true.
Or you just try something.
What are some of the other things that you see in perimenopause that get your attention pattern-wise?
I would say that what is really common is you'll have women they're PMSing like crazy. They feel like their emotions are all over the place. They're getting irritable with their family or their coworkers that is unlike them. And they're like, this is not like me. And then and they're still having periods, but maybe they're a little irregular, or they're not having a period and then they're hot and sweaty. And it will go kind of back and forth. They might have a couple cycles and they don't have 3 cycles. And so sometimes you have to use different formulas and you have to switch it up. So for the PMS piece, what I commonly will see, you'll see liver, gallbladder kinds of things at that point often. So, some of your classic stuff like Danja Shaya-san in the morning and Swanza Rentong at night, stuff like that can work really well at that point. Sometimes I'll use Chayu Longu Muli Tong if it fits the pattern. If people are not, if they're also sort of like anxious and not sleeping and hot and they get nauseous easily, I'll use Huang Lian Wendan Tong. But sometimes...
Oh, yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I think the one thing that you do want to pay attention to is that a lot of these classical formulas that were not made for women, you have to be careful of women's fluids. The depletion of fluids is so common. And so sometimes you're lowering the ban sha, or sometimes you're using tianhua fun instead of ban sha, or stuff like that. Or even with if you end up with yang tonics, sometimes you're using tu sitza, you're not using fudza. Like, don't be afraid to switch that stuff out just to to make it so you're not getting women too hot and dry, if that makes sense.
Okay. So with women in particular, I think if I'm hearing you correctly, be a little more attentive and protective of the fluids.
Yes. And especially, I think, American women. I think that, like, when you look at all these fertility formulas that are out there, a lot of the things with all the yang stuff is almost like the American women can't take the yang as much as some women in other cultures. I think it's because of that go thing in the U.S. and we deplete even if we're not yin deficient, we've been depleting our yin, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
So I just think about those things. And I also think about a lot of those classical formulas. They weren't made for women. They were made for men going to battle and thing. There's a reason we have women's formulas. So.
Yeah, and they're a bit different.
Yes. Otherwise, sometimes what will happen is you'll end up with vaginal dryness or you'll end up with bladder infections. And they'll be like, I never had bladder infections before, but then I went off with that Duho Jishang Tong for 3 months and didn't come back, and I was getting all these bladder infections. Stuff like that can happen. So you just got to be cautious about that.
Interesting. So bladder infections from too much dryness.
Too much hot yang. Yeah.
Too much hot yang. Just plain old hot yang.
Yeah. Even if they're yang deficient, you got to make sure it's not too much.
Okay. This plays into that whole heat aspect. How much of the heat that you're seeing is what you call an excess heat, and how much is more of like a floating yang deficiency? And how do you make those distinctions?
Well, I think one thing that can be really useful is to ask them what their heat was like before they went through menopause. Like what was their MO all their lives? And a lot of women will tell you they were cold. And so then if they were cold before, you want to ask, okay, so are you hot all the time now, or are you sometimes hot, sometimes cold? And a lot of women will be having hot flashes, but they're also cold. Or they're having hot flashes, but they're also like their hands and feet are cold, like a sunny-san pattern. Or their lower body is cold, but their hot flashes on the top. And so those kinds of women, you're probably not going to be using, a straight clearing heat formula. If someone was hot before, they're going to be more likely to have an excess heat or like a yin deficient heat, if that makes sense. They were hot even before menopause, they were hot all the time.
Right. So they already run sort of excessive that way.
So that's how I think about that. Yes, then they're going to get really hot. Whereas the women who are cold before, often they're doing a hot and cold thing, and you're going to be looking at more of a mixed pattern.
Yeah. So again, we're really back to not looking at hormone levels, not looking at blood work. We're looking at their Chinese diagnosis, the basics that we learned in school.
Exactly. Like forget what they're telling you about. Exactly. Forget what they're telling you about estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. I mean, I do think it's useful to think, what does testosterone do? Okay, it's warming. What does progesterone do? It's warming. What does estrogen do? It's kind of dampening. So those are interesting to think about in terms of what they're taking. But sometimes women will come in and they're on hormones and they're still bothered by these symptoms. So you can take that into account, but I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, if someone comes in and says my estrogen's low, then I'm going to suddenly give them Zhi Di Huang Wan. I wouldn't think that way. I don't think that will help you with your patient.
This whole idea, and maybe just because, look, back when I was studying Chinese medicine, long ago, back in the 90s, the thoughts of hormone therapy and how it was being used didn't so much come into the teaching and thinking of us in Chinese medicine school. We weren't really thinking about that stuff until later.
Yeah. You mean we weren't educated that way? Is that what you mean?
We weren't really educated that way. And it wasn't so popular in the culture.
No. Well, I think that we went through a whole thing. I can't remember exactly when it started. There was this nurses' health study where they all of a sudden said, hormones are terrible, they're causing cancer. And then all the women dropped their hormones. I think that was about the time we were in school. But now there's all this new research out, and I actually did put a link in the show notes to there's several meta-analyses that have come out over and over and over again in the last few years, that the risk of hormones is actually much less than we've thought. I mean, we're talking like maybe you've got I can't remember the exact statistics, but it's sort of like, okay, maybe 2 in 1,000 women are going to get breast cancer instead of 1 in 1,000 women are going to get breast cancer from hormones. And they're actually using vaginal estrogen for vaginal dryness, even with cancer, women who have had breast cancer.
Oh my goodness. Okay. That's a turnaround.
And so the thoughts now are shorter, if you use it for a short amount of time, less than 5 years around the change, that the risk is actually quite low. It's when you're using it for an extended period of time or when you're older, the risks are going up. I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but this is there's a show note thing I think it's important for us to be educated about what modern research is telling us so that we aren't giving our patients false information or scaring our patients. But I think it's going to, all of a sudden, hormone therapy is big business right now, and it's going to continue that way. And I think you'll see a lot of women coming in who are on hormones who are going to have problems anyway, and they're going to end up in our office. And probably because they're taking the hormones, so maybe it's helping the worst of it, but they're still going to be gaining weight, having symptoms. So things will change.
Yes. So let's talk about that weight gain.
I'm still, yeah, sure. So this is actually really interesting. So many women, I'm sure all of us have patients like this who are coming in, they're like, oh my God, I'm going to CrossFit 4 days a week and I'm not eating anything and the weight is just not coming off, or I can't lose weight no matter what, or I'm even gaining weight. And I think what's important here.
Yes, I saw that woman just last week.
Yes, you'll see him every week. And it's really counterintuitive. But, when our body is in that high cortisol state, and what I would think of this, the way I filter this through Chinese medicine is that we are doing too much for our bodies. So our yang is depleted, and we've got all this empty heat. And that empty heat, maybe it's showing up in like our appetite when we've got stomach heat, or maybe it's showing up in Our liver, our heart it's like our yang can't be rooted because we're overdoing it.
Right. So you don't sleep.
No sleep. And so they're actually gaining weight. But if you actually can get them to switch up some of that heavy duty exercise and really exercise for what their energy level is, like if they're not sleeping or they're up 2 or 3 hours every night, if they just walk, or just do some gentle yoga, not vinyasa hot yoga, but like where they're getting their whatever they can do that is enjoyable to them, that can get their body into the parasympathetic is going to help them. And they will at that. And, in thinking, if I'm going to go out and exercise today, what happened the last 24 hours? Did I work a 16-hour shift and then I didn't sleep for 3 hours? Like, go for a gentle walk with your dog and let them sniff around and breathe. And just breathe in the air and just move your body a little bit, but don't get your body will read more exercise as more stress. It will read really restricting your diet as stress, and that will raise the cortisol more, and then your body stores fat thinking it's an emergency. So if you can get the nervous system calmed down, and acupuncture will help this, do those ear points and really calm them, then the weight will start to come off. And when they get through the change and they start to sleep again, their bodies will regulate. 5 pounds up is normal, and that's something hard for a lot of women to hear, but 5 pounds is normal because our bodies will store estrogen in the fat cells. But if they take care and eat, and I'm not saying only eat protein and no starch, like you need more protein, but be moderate and just exercise moderately for what else is going on in your life, it will come off.
This is such an interesting challenge because at least the patients that I have that like to exercise, when I talk to them about exercise, I say, well, what do you like? Well, I like my CrossFit. I like my kickboxing. I like my HIIT training. That's my idea of fun. Some women say their idea of fun is nice soft yoga. Great, easier to transition them into it. But for the ones who really enjoy that really hard pushing exercise, it's tricky to get them to turn themselves into a white mouse for a few weeks and just try it and see what happens.
And maybe they need to just do it for 30 minutes instead of an hour. Or maybe they do it at 60% or something like that. Or maybe instead of doing it 6 days a week, they do it 2 days a week and walk the other days. Maybe work with them where they're at. This can be really interesting. So how many patients do you have that wear those rings that read their body?
Oh my God. I want to take a hammer to those damn things.
Okay, I have been against these things. I'm like, oh my God, just listen to your body. Don't let this ring tell you what's going on. But I have discovered it can be very useful because people will come in and they're in high stress mode all the time, and that ring will tell them that. And so you can tell them to do some of these things and then have them check their ring and tell them how their stress level is doing.
Oh, I like that.
And yes, and I've had a few patients actually who were the CrossFit women.
Yes.
And then first they'll tell you that when they go to acupuncture, the ring tells them they're sleeping. Yeah. But now you can sort of educate them about some of these lifestyle stuff and say, and just watch what that ring tells you. It'll show you and explain to them about the cortisol and how with the high cortisol, their body will not lose weight. And if the ring is telling them they're in stress mode, and they can sometimes get that.
Yeah. Oh, I think they would.
And so now I'm thinking, this is actually a kind of an interesting tool, as much as I hate these things. I'm like, you're sleeping or not. Ask yourself, are you wake up in the morning, do you feel like you slept last night? Don't ask the ring. But
I know. I'm with you totally on that. I've actually had some patients who say they're sleeping longer. Well, I'm sleeping longer these days, but then I look at my ring results and I see it's terrible.
Like, whatever.
Yeah, well, you and I are whatever, but again, for the kinds of people, and these are often the hard driving people. They've got metric, they want to meet the metric.
Oh my God, yeah.
They're the kinds of folks that they're probably managers that use spreadsheets or something to keep metrics on everything. And that's just the way those people are. So meeting them where they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try this thing, see what your ring, don't believe me. I'm an acupuncturist. What would I know?
Yeah. Look at the ring.
Look at the ring. Read the ring.
And they're so used to being in the stress mode, they don't even realize they're in the stress mode, even though the ring is telling them they're in the stress mode. So I just discovered this in the last 6 weeks with a fertility patient I had who was doing the CrossFit and working really hard. And now she's doing all the stuff I'm telling her, and the ring is telling her she's not stressed all the time.
Oh, that's great.
Which is super cool. And she was definitely a CrossFit gal.
Yeah, it is super cool. Okay. Christina, that's super helpful. I have been railing against the ring in my own mind for months now. And this is an avenue that I can go explore and maybe turn it to my benefit, turn it to the light side.
Yeah, yeah. Have fun with it. Yes, yeah.
All right. Well,
Oh my gosh.
I know there's a lot to talk about. I hate to say this, but we should probably be wrapping this up.
All right. Well,
Probably have to have you on the podcast for like a long, long conversation because, man, this thing about going back to our Chinese medicine differential diagnosis. I loved hearing you say that today because it seems to me so often, I look at Facebook or just listen to conversations, it's almost like we've been forgetting to use this in our profession.
it's frustrating. I feel like, and there's so many people out there doing functional medicine and this and that. Like, we have so much to offer, and no one else, very few people are taking the time to really put all these pieces together, especially with doctors are moving so fast. Everything is so compartmentalized with blood work and this and that. And when you actually take the time to educate your patient and put it all together, sometimes you just get these aha moments that are so powerful for them. And I think that we forget how powerful that is. And I just encourage everyone to, and getting good at diagnosis is something that you don't just get out of school and you're good at it. It takes time, and it takes work, it takes experimenting, it takes being afraid to be wrong and admitting to your patients sometimes, I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't work, it's going to give us tons of information. But I have this idea, and if this doesn't work, I've got 3 other ones up my sleeve, but this is going to help us figure out what to do next, and just stick with it. And when you explain it all to them and bring them into that process, they'll go there with you, and they'll give you the chance to do it. And then you'll learn, and you'll keep learning. I'm still learning.
Oh my goodness, yeah. More than ever, huh?
Yes. Yep. That's what keeps it interesting.
It's kind of endless. It does. Well, I'll make sure that the show notes page has those studies you were talking about. Anything else that you think would be useful that you want to share with the listeners, I'll put it there as well.
That's about all I put in there for menopause. I put a research thing I published on high-risk pregnancy. I put that in there. It's about preeclampsia and hypertension. And I put my website. I love students. I love, mentoring newer practitioners. So if anyone's in the area and they're looking for that, they can look me up.
Terrific. Christina?
And thank you for the opportunity, Michael.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yep. It was a pleasure. Take care.
You too. When practitioners reach for a Chai Hu Guizhi Tang or Shao Qing Long Tang, they need quality that they can trust. Lhasa OMS supplies the herbs your clinic needs to be ready for the cold and flu season. Visit Lhasa OMS to source the classical formulas featured in this series. Use the code REMEDY20 for 20% off your next purchase at lhasaoms.com. Some exclusions apply. See the website for details. That's it for this episode of Shop Talk. Did you learn something that brought a patient to mind? Don't keep a good thing to yourself. Share it with a friend. They'll be happy that you did. And tune in again for our next episode of Shop Talk.